Hi there, and welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today we're gonna make this delicious, creamy bacon onion mac and cheese, and we're gonna do it all in the Ninja Foodi. So the first thing you wanna do is get your onions and your bacon cooking. And to do that, there's a couple ways you can approach it. You can certainly preheat your Ninja Foodi on broil or air crisp or whatever function you want for 5 to 10 minutes. But I didn't do that. I'm just gonna go straight from cold and it's gonna be fine. It's just gonna take a little bit longer for the bacon to cook, but no problems at all. So I have the rack in, so I'm gonna pull that out. Then I have half of an onion that I have sliced in about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch slices. You don't have to worry about what size they are. Just make them uniform so they all cook evenly. We're gonna put that on the bottom of the inner pot and then put our rack back on and just make sure that it's kind of nestled down in there so that it sits evenly. Now I have 4 pieces of applewood smoked thick cut bacon that we're going to air crisp in the Ninja Foodi. If you haven't done bacon in the Ninja Foodi yet, it is fantastic and super easy to do. So I have them cut in half just so they fit on the rack a little bit better. I'm gonna go ahead and arrange them on the rack and just try to get them in the best way you can. We're gonna be crumbling them up for this recipe so they don't even really need to lay flat. I know some people drape them over the rack so that they're pointing down, so like this. You can fit a lot of bacon on there this way. However, I don't find that it cooks evenly enough for my liking, so I don't do it that way. I lay it out. You want to try to make sure they're not overlapping. I mean, a few are going to kind of overlap a little bit, but then as they start to cook and shrink, I'm going to move them around and try to get them so that they're all cooking without touching each other. You can use all the real estate you need here, so I'm going to go over there a little bit and probably over here a little bit. All right, that should be good. Now we're going to close the lid and do the air crisp function, and we're going to take the temperature down to 360. The time is going to be about 14 minutes. Now this varies depending on the cut of bacon. So thick cut, thin cut, obviously thin cut would take a less time. You might actually even want to bump the heat down a little bit more for the thin cut bacon. And also I've found that just various different brands of bacon cook differently. So I would say it's going to be between 14 and 17 or 18 minutes total. We will flip between 7 and 8 minutes. So after about 7 minutes, I'll check it and probably flip them then. And then we'll just let them keep going for the remainder of the time until they become really crispy and all that fat has rendered out. Now, everybody likes their bacon different, but I encourage you to do it crispy for this recipe because it will soften some when we mix it in with our mac and cheese. All right, now one other thing I did want to share with you is, I always test my recipes several times before they go out to you because I like to iron out all the kinks and make sure they're going to work perfectly the first time. And one thing that you might think about doing, which I thought about doing and I thought it would be brilliant, is to just cut up the bacon into little bite-sized pieces and sauteing in the bottom with the onions because, that would give so much flavor and produce those little brown bits that are so lovely. And it did. It worked really great. However, the end product, the end macaroni and cheese, had this odd brown color to it from all of the bacon bits that got in there, and it just wasn't that appealing. It was delicious though, so if you're making it at home and you want to do it that way and you're not going to be put off by the weird color, go ahead. But for this recipe I decided to do the bacon on the rack. So once the bacon cooks for 7 minutes, I will flip it and then we will go the remainder of the 7 or 8 minutes, however long it takes, and then we'll get our bacon out and we'll finish up our mac and cheese. All right, so it's been just about 8 minutes or so, 7.5 minutes. So let's give a peek here, and I can see it starting to brown. And it hasn't really rendered out a lot of the fat, but don't worry, that will happen. That will happen during the next 7 minutes. Now, the bacon pieces that are on the outside always tend to get done a little bit quicker, or a little bit, more brown than the inside pieces. So you might check in another minute or two and move them around. But for right now, I'm just gonna leave them the way that they are and just flip them. Now, I'm not sure if flipping is even necessary. My husband and I said we're gonna try the next time we make bacon to not even worry about flipping it, because you are getting airflow around into the underside of the bacon. So whether or not we need to flip it is, I don't know, up in the air, but I'm a flipper. I always flip my bacon. I probably am a little excessive about it. So you don't have to flip if you don't want to. Just make sure that the end result is nice and crunchy. All right, so the last 10 seconds or so is counting down. So we've gone a total of 14 minutes and I flipped at about 7.5 minutes or so. And now once it goes through the cool down cycle, which just takes about a second, we will open it up and see what our bacon looks like, and then make some determinations of whether or not we need to put on the Ninja Foodi for another couple minutes or not. Ooh, it looks so pretty. All right, so it looks really good. Now, what I can see is just what I said earlier, is that the outside pieces have gotten a little bit more done than the ones that are in the middle. So I'm just going to flip them and move them towards the outside a little bit and move these guys to the inside. And I am not sure why this happens. I'm thinking it's the way the fan is designed to push the air out so that it goes underneath and bounces back up. That's my thought, but I'm not an engineer, so I don't absolutely know. But it does seem to happen all the time. All right, I think that looks pretty good. All right, so let's go down another 3 minutes or so, and then when it's done, I'll go between 3 and 5 minutes on 360, and then when it's done, I will take it out and get them on the paper towels, because it's important when you make bacon and you want it to be crispy, you want to drain off that grease that's on the bacon, and that will allow it to really crisp up as it cools. All right, so I went another 4 minutes, and actually I think that was about 30 seconds too long. Some of my outside pieces got just a little bit too done, but it will be fine. They're not really that burnt or anything, just a little crispy, darker edges on the outside, but the rest of them look beautiful. So I'm just gonna lay them. That's another little outside piece, but I actually kind of like the flavor of that, so it won't bother me, but I should have kept a better eye. When you're air crisping, just lift up that lid and check it out frequently so that you don't burn up your bacon. All right. Now I'm just gonna put this paper towel over top here and try to get this one little piece. This one little guy is way over in the corner here. So I think I'm gonna have to take my, whoop, there he goes. Take my rack out and grab him out. All right. Now, the onions. So the onions have softened and caramelized, especially the ones that are on the outside. So if you like them really dark, like this one is, when you put them in, make sure you move them all to the outside, and that will help. But I like the combination of the two. I think that produces the best flavor in the mac and cheese. So the next thing we want to do is go ahead and hit the sear saute and hit the start button. High is fine for this. It's only going to be on for a few minutes. But what we want to do is deglaze the bottom of the pot, because any of these parts that are brown here could trigger the water notice, because the Ninja Foodi pot will think that something's burning on the bottom, even though we have plenty of water, or in this case, we're using chicken stock, but you could use water as well. So we're gonna let this heat up just a little bit, and then I'm gonna deglaze the bottom with 1 cup of chicken stock. Now we're gonna use a total of 3 cups because you want the noodles to be just covered with the broth so that they cook evenly. But I'm gonna deglaze with just the 1 cup. It makes it just a little bit easier. So we'll just let this heat up just a minute, and meanwhile, I'm gonna use my scoop and spread, which I just absolutely love, just to sort of get some of these bits off the bottom. This is important to do anytime that you saute anything, followed by pressure cooking. You don't want those bits to be on the bottom, because they will trigger that water notice, most of the time anyway. And the bacon grease stays right in there. That's gonna add a ton of flavor and add like even more bacon flavor to our mac and cheese. All right, so let's go ahead and dump in the 1 cup. Now, if it was a little hotter, you would see it start to bubble right away. It wasn't that hot, but it's okay. This stuff isn't really that stuck on, so it's gonna be fine. And I'm just gonna go around and get the rest off. That looks good. Okay, so let's talk about noodle choices. What I decided to use is something a little bit different. It's not traditional, but it's called Celentani noodles, and I hope I'm saying that correctly. And they're from Barilla, and I really like the shape of them. So they're like little corkscrews, and they've got some ridges. And the reason why I chose these is because the ridges are gonna help to hold that sauce and just give a ton of flavor. But you could use elbow macaroni as well if you wanted to be really traditional. I would decrease your time to about 4 minutes. Or maybe 6 minutes. We're gonna do 8 minutes of high pressure cooking followed by a 2-minute natural release. I found that was perfect for these noodles. Penne might take a few minutes shorter time, so 6 minutes with maybe a 2-minute or 3-minute natural release. So that is completely up to you. But for this, I'm gonna use the Celentani noodles, which they're so cute. All right, so let's go ahead and get those in. And the other 2 cups of our chicken broth. And again, you could use water for that. That's no problem. I just like the added flavor. I just think it really boosts the flavor of the entire dish. If you don't use chicken stock and you use water, you may want to add in just a little bit of salt. But remember, the cheese has a lot of salt, so don't go overboard with that. Okay, great. So one thing I wanted to mention that there's a couple ways you could do this. You could take the onions out as well, which I have done before, and then add them back in at the end. But I'm not a fan of like pulling out a stringy onion. So I wanted to pressure cook them. They're gonna soften up, probably even dissolve mostly, but then we're gonna get really incredible flavor into this broth, and I think it's gonna be absolutely delicious. The other thing is, if you wanted to make a full pound of pasta, because I'm only using 8 ounces, you could do that. You're just gonna wanna increase your chicken stock to the point where it just lightly covers the top. So you don't necessarily need to double the chicken stock in this recipe, just put enough in so that it's covering all of the pasta so that it cooks evenly. All right, so I also turned on the sear saute onto high just to keep that broth heating up. That's gonna make it a little bit quicker when we go under pressure. But the next thing we have to do is create our roux. And some of you might have said, why didn't you create your roux with the bacon grease? Well, because you can't go under pressure with a roux. It thickens the sauce too much and it tends to burn. So I came up with this really cool trick that works perfectly, and I'm super excited to share it with you. So what I have here is a 6-inch by 2-inch Fat Daddy-O pan, but you can use any pan that is pressure safe. And I'm gonna add in 2 tablespoons of melted butter. And this is melted, but it's kind of sat here a little bit, but it's not gonna be any problem, that's fine. So I'm just gonna get that out, and we're gonna put in 2 tablespoons of flour. This is just all-purpose flour. And the basis for any roux is equal combinations of fat and flour. So you could use butter, you could use bacon grease, you could use oil even. In fact, I've made a roux a different kind of way. So if you're interested in seeing that video, I will link to it right up there. It's for Cajun jambalaya, and it is fantastic, and we make a really dark roux in the Ninja Foodi. For mac and cheese though, you want a light roux, so you want it to be a pale yellow color. So what we're gonna do is pressure cook this. You need to heat the roux to get the flour cooked out of it, but what I found is that you can do that when you want a blonde roux. You can do that right in the Ninja Foodi under pressure. So you just make this paste, just like that. Now cover it, which I'm gonna use these, the silicone lid. I think they come in a set of 4 or 5. I think they're like, I don't know, $15 or $20, well worth it. So I'm gonna set that on top there. That will just seal it from water, and it really does a nice job. Look at that. All right, so the rack, I did rinse this off, but you know, you wouldn't even really have to if you didn't want to. And actually, I'm sorry, we're gonna put that on the high position so that our mac and cheese has a place to go as it expands. So we're gonna go ahead and put this on. Now, you can see it sits a little bit higher. That is not a problem. It will work. You just wanna make sure it's to the front so that your lid can seal and doesn't block the vent in the back. All right, so we're gonna put our lid on. Now, because the pot is hot, because I've had the sear saute on, you might notice a little bit of resistance. Push down and turn, and it'll be fine, okay? It's just because there is some steam built up in there that's pushing back against the lid. All right, so switch over to pressure. We're gonna go 8 minutes and hit the start button and make sure that your valve is set to the seal. And after the 8 minutes is up, we'll do a 2-minute natural release. Then I'll manually release the rest of the pressure and we'll get all the cheesy goodness added in to make our mac and cheese. Okay, so we went under pressure for 8 minutes on high, and then I did a 2-minute natural release, and then I immediately released the rest of the pressure after the 2 minutes. I guess I should call that a manual release because it isn't really an immediate release since we did 2 minutes of natural release. And it took about 1.5 minutes, 1 minute and 45 seconds to finish releasing the pressure and for the pin to drop down. So now I'm going to open this up and do that away from you because the steam coming out is very hot. And now we're gonna get our container that has our roux off. And I think it's just gonna be easiest if I go ahead and just lift this off. Now it's gonna look funny in there, don't worry about it, it works perfectly. I've already tried it, it's all nice and cooked. And you're not gonna get color on it this way, but that doesn't matter because we don't want color for macaroni and cheese because we don't want it to be brown. We want it to be a creamy white sauce. All right, so I'm gonna take my gloves off here now and give this a stir and just kind of see. Okay, looks good. So yeah, those onions really did reduce down. They're very soft, so I'm thinking when we bite into them now, they will not kind of pull out all in one bite. And let's get this. I think this will be still hot, yeah. Now I'm just gonna put the roux right in here. I know some people skip the step of doing a roux with their macaroni and cheese, and I mean, you can, but you're gonna have more chances of your cheese separating and kind of globbing up on you, which doesn't make for a very attractive macaroni and cheese, if you ask me. So I go ahead and use the roux almost all the time. Unless you're using like a Velveeta, you don't really need to, and that's just because it's been modified to not split on you. So that's one of the things, but Velveeta is not very good for you. All right, so there we go. Now we're really getting that chicken stock really thick now. And I'm gonna add in, I have 1 cup of half and half, but I'm gonna only add half of it right now. All right, so we're gonna stir this in. Now, you can put the sear saute on, but I would not put it on high though at this point. I would go ahead and go maybe to medium. The heat is gonna help to thicken that up and melt our cheese. So I'm just gonna stir this around so that it thickens a little bit. And while that's happening, let me talk about the cheese. So what I've decided to go with for this macaroni and cheese is a 3 cheese blend of Monterey Jack, which has been shredded, and it's about a cup of each of these cheeses. So a cup of Monterey Jack. I'd used a cup of smoked cheddar and a cup of smoked Gouda. And that produces a really nice flavor in this macaroni and cheese and complements that smoky bacon. So you could use any kind of cheese blend that you want. I also chose to keep these all white cheeses, but you could throw in cheddar cheese as well. You could really customize this any which way you want, but I do recommend using a combination of like a Monterey Jack or something else some other cheese that is really easily melted along with some of your other like cheddar cheeses that sometimes like to split. All right, it's looking good. It smells good too. You can smell the onions. All right, that looks like it's thickened up nicely. So let's go ahead and add in half of our cheese. And just mix it around. I also find that the roux with the half and half, or milk, you could use milk, that's no problem. I think it reheats a lot better too. So if you're gonna make this macaroni and cheese and you know you're not gonna eat it all, and you wanna reheat it the next day, you know, sometimes it's not very good reheated. Well, this one really is delicious. All you have to do is put it in a pan, put 2 cups of water in the bottom of the inner pot, cover the pan, put the pan on a rack, go under the steam function with, of course, the valve open, and steam it for 10 to 15 minutes. And it will not overcook the noodles, but it heats up everything nicely. If it's not as creamy as you like at that point, you can also add in just a little bit of half and half, and that will make it a lot more creamier for you. Oh, this is looking so good. All right, let's add in the rest of our cheese. The smell is amazing. Okay, so that's looking really good. Now, this is when you make a decision based on how you're gonna finish up your mac and cheese, whether or not you add the other half of a cup. And it looks like I added a little more than a half of a cup, so I probably have about 1/3 of a cup left, between 1/4 and 1/3 left. So this is totally up to you. If you're gonna bake it with like a breadcrumb topping, then you definitely wanna go ahead and add in the rest of the half and half because it is going to reduce down more. All right, so this is looking great and it has really thickened up, so that's perfect. Now again, if you want to go under a bake or a broil, go ahead and add in the remaining liquid, but I'm not going to do that this time. As soon as we add in our bacon, I'm gonna put it into my little cast iron dish and get it broiled up that way. All right, let's get this bacon in. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use probably 3/4 of this into the entire mac and cheese. And I'm gonna use the ones that are overcooked a little bit inside, and the ones that still could use a little more cooking, I'm gonna use those for a little garnish on top. So let's take out, maybe just 1 slice will be fine. And we'll crumble this up into the macaroni and cheese. You can make them any size you want. I'm just making kind of big bite-sized pieces. Of course, you could always add more bacon too. So if you're really a bacon lover, you know, you can make up 6 strips of bacon. That's kind of the beauty of a macaroni and cheese. You can really customize it to the way you like it. All right, that looks great. Now, let me mix these in and see if it's a good amount of bacon in there. Yeah, it looks really good. I'm only gonna need 1 piece of bacon for my topping, but I'm gonna keep out 2 and put this last one in there. Oh my gosh, I can't even explain the smell. It's so good. I can't wait to eat this. All right, so now let me scoop out some of this to put in my cast iron little pan here. And this cast iron pan fits really nicely in the Ninja Foodi on the rack in the low position, but it doesn't fit in the high position. The lid will not close because of these handles. I also understand that you can cut off the handles, but I'm not sure how to do that, so I haven't done that. And you could get a bigger one. So cast iron cooking is something I see a lot in my groups. I have not done a lot of it, but I do see it in Ninja Foodi 101 quite a bit. All right, let's get this in here. Yummy. Now this would be enough macaroni and cheese for like 2 to 3 side portions. I mean, it would be an awful lot for just 1 person. Even though the pans look kind of small, it really is a lot of macaroni and cheese in here. It's probably about 2.5 to 3 cups of cheese. All right, so before I get that topped and in the broiler, I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of this macaroni and cheese out into a little casserole dish just for later, and then clean up the pot a little bit, and then we'll get our cheese topped on here and we'll get this under the broiler. All right, so I have set the Ninja Foodi on broil and preheating for 10 minutes. And in the meantime, what I've noticed is that the macaroni and cheese has really thickened up quite a bit. Since I'm gonna go under broil and I want it to be creamy, I'm gonna add in a little bit more of this, half and half. So maybe about 2 tablespoons in there, and then I'm just gonna pour the rest in on that, and I'll mix that in. That's gonna keep it really creamy. Now, if you don't like a really creamy macaroni and cheese, you like it more a texture of baked, then you certainly do not have to do this. I did sneak a bite though. It's delicious. It's really, really good. All right, so to top off the bacon, onion, mac and cheese, what I've decided to use is a really sharp cheddar cheese, and also just a little blend of pre-shredded that has some yellow cheddar and a little bit of Monterey Jack in it. And I'm just gonna do that for color, mostly. I think this is the cheese that's gonna give the great flavor. So I'm just gonna grate that over top. Oh, I'm so looking forward to this. Macaroni and cheese is one of those indulgences for me. I don't make it very often. My husband isn't a huge fan of it, although he loves bacon, so he actually likes this version. So when I get to make it, I'm really excited about it. I also have another type of macaroni and cheese that I made in the Ninja Foodi, and I'm gonna link to that recipe right up there. And don't let the figs fool you, because the figs in it are delicious, so give that recipe a try too. All right, so I didn't measure this. It's maybe 2 tablespoons of this really super sharp aged cheddar. I think it's a cheddar reserve, and I will find the exact brand that I use and I will link to it below, or at least write a description. I don't know if you can find it on Amazon, but I find it at Sam's Club. So I'll make sure I write exactly what it is. Then I'm just gonna take another tablespoon or so and just go around. I do want to kind of make sure that I'm covering up any of the pasta, because if it's uncovered, it's going to cook and become like a little crunchy, and you don't want that for your mac and cheese. So anywhere you see a little bit of pasta, just add that cheese on top, and that will protect it. Or push it in, just like that. Oh wow, this looks beautiful. I'm so excited. Okay, so we have been preheating for almost 5 minutes, and that's probably enough. Usually I say to go a full 10, but I think the 5 minutes is gonna be fine for this. And we'll put this on the rack in the low position. Go ahead and open up the lid and set it down. And close this. And while that's heating up, I'm gonna go ahead and mix this in too. Now, you know what's interesting is I wonder if this, I think this is a 6-cup Pyrex dish, which is fine to use in the Ninja Foodi if you're not going under pressure. So I'm wondering now that I'm looking at it, I wonder if this fits on the rack and would go in there, because you could do the whole thing. You know, just keep it all in there and then top the whole thing and pop this in and broil it and serve it. That would be really pretty. Oh, I forgot to put the bacon on as the garnish. I'm so silly. All right, so let's just garnish this up a little bit. It's already melting. Looks amazing. Oh, I'm so excited. It's the little things, right? Like bacon. Bacon is so exciting. I love it. All right, perfect. Now I could probably have saved another one for this, but I'm just gonna mix it in. And it won't have to have the pretty garnish on top. I'm gonna go ahead and just get this one all set up too. Now, the other thing you could do, and because we've added in that extra little bit of half and half, this would be great, is that you could make this one up and stick it in the freezer and then just get it out, let it thaw, and bake it up in the Ninja Foodi. If this fits. We're gonna find that out though before the end of this video, because I am really excited to find out. Yum, yum, yum. All right, that's good. I also didn't mention here, but this was about 1.5 cups to 2 cups of this shredded cheese. Perfect, and you can see the little bacon poking through, so that's awesome. Perfect. And then this is like the chef's treat. That cheese is amazing. Amazing. All right, I'm just gonna clean up here a little bit. Let's check on this though first. Oh, wow. It has to go a little bit longer, but it is gorgeous. All right, so we just have about 30 seconds left. So I preheated for 5 minutes and I broiled for 5 minutes, and then we'll check it. Now you could always broil longer if you want to, but I have a feeling it's gonna be done after 5 minutes. I don't wanna burn the cheese. I just want it melted and lightly brown, like golden brown. So I wait for the last 10 seconds. When I said I was gonna check to see if this would fit in the Ninja Foodi, my husband bet me $1 that it's not going to. Now I haven't tried it before because to be honest, it never crossed my mind. So I'm gonna try it, and if it fits, I just earned $1. And if it doesn't fit, I owe my husband $1. All right, oh, that looks gorgeous. Perfect, that's perfect timing. Oh boy, this is really beautiful. And I know it's gonna taste good. All right, look at that. All right, so while this cools down for me to taste test it, let's see if I can get this on. Oh my gosh. Let's see, it'll be cool. I'm gonna keep my gloves on because everything's kind of hot. If this works, I'm gonna be so excited because that's another container that I can use. All right, ready? Oh, it doesn't fit. Husband was right. Darn it. I lost the bet. All right, here you go. Oh man, I'm disappointed. I was sure it was gonna fit. Oh well, it's these edges. Anyway, what I'll do is I'll transfer this into a pan that actually does fit in the Ninja Foodi, and I will bake it up. Or I may go ahead and freeze it just like that. I'm not sure yet. But anyway, we don't need to worry about that. You can do it however you like. But for now, let's get to tasting the bacon onion mac and cheese. Ooh, I'm so excited, but I need a fork. All right, so I've got my fork, and now I have my chipotle. Remember, I talked about adding that in. So this is just ground chipotle, and I'm just gonna sprinkle it on top. It adds a little smoky heat and really pairs nicely with this bacon onion mac. But a little bit goes a long way. So I could sprinkle it on like this, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna sprinkle it onto my hand. Look at that. If I would have dropped that much on there, oh boy. So just a tiny bit. Maybe 1/4 teaspoon on this whole thing. Maybe not even that much, 1/8. Now, if you like it really spicy, load it up. All right, let me get this back in here. My hands are clean, I promise. Perfect. I love chipotle. I like it much better than cayenne, although sometimes I use cayenne, just depending on the recipe, but I like the smokiness of the chipotle pepper. All right, let's do this. Got to get a piece of bacon. So the cheese is wonderful. Oh my gosh. And inside it is so creamy. Oh, wow. That is perfect. That's exactly the way I wanted it. Oh my God, that's gorgeous. Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited about this. Oh, this is perfect. I got a piece of bacon in there. I think my dog heard bacon because here she comes. Wow. I am not kidding you. This is the best macaroni and cheese I've ever had. And the inspiration came from a restaurant that we went to. And they had a really good bacon mac and cheese. And I was like, oh, I want to make that. And I tried a couple times and it just didn't have the same like creamy feel that theirs did. And but this one is the winner. So You've got to try this, guys. It's perfect. I'm really excited about this. All right, well, this one didn't fit, but that's okay because I looked in my cabinets and I found this little guy that is gonna fit. So what I'm doing right now is just transferring this over so that I can freeze this for later and it will fit in the Ninja Foodi. So before you go out and buy those new accessories, check your cabinets. Chances are you've got a few things that are gonna fit and they'll work great in the Ninja Foodi. Just don't pressure cook in Pyrex.